Oh, well, now do we have to go to this silly old dinner? The speaker will bore us and they won't miss us.
They'd miss him, but yeah. He's the speaker.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. So I've been joined by Carter Oosterhouse, who is a home improvement star and a lifestyle expert. And he has been on TLC's Trading Spaces, ABC's Christmas Lights Fight, and other shows like Carter Can, Red Hot and Green, $2 Million Rooms, and Celebrity Motorhomes. So I want to welcome Carter to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, we were just talking before the recording is that you're currently actually in Michigan, which is actually very intriguing because you grew up in a small city called Traverse City in Michigan.
Yeah.
And I believe according to the census estimate for 2019, the population has less than 16,000 people. So my question is, how has that childhood really affected you as a person? And how does that kind of tie into the fact that you spend quite a few months now in Michigan as well?
Well, first off, growing up in a small town was something that you're always, anybody who has lived or grown up in a small town or raised in a small town, they realize all you're trying to do is get out of the town. That's what you want to do. You want to leave. You feel like there's nothing happening and you just want to, experience the rest of the world. And then when you go experience the rest of the world, all you try to do is get back to that town. And there's something pretty sweet about that because I feel like growing up in a town like Traverse City, and like you said, where it is tremendously small, you realize, look, my dad, he was a farmer. We were not farmers growing up, but he just had a huge work ethic. And so the way we were raised was very much, you're not stagnant. You're moving. You're as mobile as possible, whether that's working, or whether that's working. And so it was. But my mom and dad, both of them were very instrumental in making sure that we were taking care of our bodies and our health, and with vitamins and protein and eating healthy and stuff. So it was a very it was a different lifestyle than all my friends, that's for sure. But I definitely credit that to, the fortunate times that I've had, later in life and the work ethic that I feel like I have now. And it wasn't fun back then, but it definitely has, blessed me to get where I am today.
Well, I know you personally were not a farmer, but I remember growing up in a working farm and having to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and it's a lot of hard work. And there's something about work ethics, though. The people that grew up in that environment, they really bring a certain degree of persistence and tenacity and grit.
Right.
And it's interesting because professionally, you're a craftsman, and of course you're on a lot of lifestyle shows. But there's a lot of hard work, right, in terms of building, but also just creating that lifestyle. So if you could talk about what it means to create and build with hard work.
Well, look, I love building, and I started building because the town that I grew up in, Traverse City, is a very big tourist town. So the home remodeling business was never ending, and still to this day, it's still just constantly booming, where we have a lot of people with, second homes and up in this town right on the water and the lakes and stuff. So growing up, I started working in carpentry pretty young age, probably about, it's kind of crazy, but it was about 11 years old, because I didn't want to work at my house for my dad anymore. I wanted to go off and do something, and that wasn't, miter cuts or anything like that, but it definitely was being around builders and building homes. And I started to realize the love that I had for it. And that, sort of became a summertime job, which became a job to help me get through college and schooling. And never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would go back to it. But what I realized is that I loved the craftsmanship and the artistry of it. And then I started to hone my skills more into building, furniture, tables, side tables. And then I started to realize that, wow, this is like a never ending opportunity here that I have, that I can build stuff and get creative. And, now I don't build for other people as much anymore, usually unless it's on a show, but I build a lot for myself and my family. And so there I get to still experience, it's crazy. It's like, as we were talking before, living in LA and working in the TV world, you realize you're in meetings and, doing stuff like this, which is fun, but you realize how much you love just being in the workshop and creating something and saying, ooh, this line looks really like, the perspective of this is really nice, opposed to, not having those moments. And that kind of helps the balance.
Yeah, it's super inspiring because, there's something about building that is so gratifying. Just right. not just the completion, but the process itself, and then you fuse that with the artistry and the creativity aspect. Yeah, it's an art platform, and of course, for you, it's a way to not only imbue your passion, but it's a way to find center, kind of peace, so to speak, with you.
Yeah, balance.
Balance, exactly. Mm-hmm. So let's transition to talk about some of the various shows that you've hosted over the years, and of course, they all kind of have a certain tentacle of patterns that we just talked about into these shows. Mm-hmm. Love to hear something kind of unusual, interesting, maybe even funny behind the scene that most viewers or subscribers maybe just not aware of.
Yeah, well, look, when I started on TV, it's funny because my two brothers, one had a construction company. He is now a partner in my in another business that we started. So he doesn't do the construction anymore. The other one is still a builder in Texas, and my sister is an interior designer in Los Angeles. So everybody has sort of got into this world to some degree. But our background in my entire family, like I previously mentioned, is that, we came from a family that was built on working. And so when I first started working in TV, I didn't say anything. My focus was to build. My focus was to build this table or make sure that the trim was perfect and the angles were right. And that was it still is to this day, my job to make sure that the project gets completed. But, on TV, you don't realize that it's a TV show first, and you have to provide interesting content that, that the audience will appreciate. And that sometimes, yes, is how you make a piece of furniture, but more or less you also have to talk. And when I first started on TV, I didn't say much, but I was just focused on working. So it took me a minute to really warm up to that. Fortunately, the show I started on was Trading Spaces. And that show had a huge cast, and so we were very lucky to split the time amongst all of us. And I let the other cast members and let them go to town and being funny or and for me, because that just wasn't my thing. My thing was making sure the job was done. So it took a minute for me to warm up. I feel like, for that show alone, we've shot over, 500 episodes. And so it was just, the good thing about that, we really learned, myself personally, I learned how to get creative and inventive, because you couldn't build the same desk, 35 times. You had to, or even twice. And so you had to figure out how you could be a little bit more creative. So it really pushed that side of your brain, which was really fun, and to engineer it too, so that way it would last. And then, and I built so many. I mean, I remember one time I built an armoire that couldn't fit in the house, and of course the cameras were not there when I realized I built it too large. So I quick scrambled, and I was so, new to TV, and I was nervous, and I thought, oh no, this is going to be the end of me. And when you build something, the last thing you want to do is demolish it. But that's what I had to do. I had to cut the thing in half and to put it into the house, because by this time, homeowners were ready to come back in and we had to get in. But then, of course, the cameras came out. Fortunately, they never shot it for me because they had to shoot something else and we didn't have any time. So I didn't get the real big on TV blame. But, you live and you learn. And it was design TV design 101 when I started on that show. So I learned a lot, learned what to do, what not to do, and how to do it. So it was an experience.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's very amusing, but also I'm sure at that time you were probably frightened. Like I said, you could lose your job when you're just starting out. Let's talk a little bit about this notion of storytelling, because when you were starting out, you were a craftsman first, and it's about execution and doing. But on TV and really other formats, it's about storytelling. So can you talk about maybe an episode or a show that you felt like, we really perfected the science of storytelling? And if you could deconstruct that for us, that would be super helpful.
Well, I mean, storytelling, to your point, and kind of what I said earlier, which is like, it has to be entertainment for the audience. So the story has to be, and I didn't really realize that when I first started. I didn't realize that at all on TV, that there has to be a good story behind it. Lots of times people will come up to me, how do I get on one of your shows? I have a fantastic house. I just want it made over. I have a backyard. I want whatever it is. And the longer my journey went within TV, the more I realized that, it's the story. It's really the story. So people would say, how can I get on? I say, do you have a good story? What's your story? What's your background? We will then intertwine that story into the episode. And that's what makes a great episode. Because if you have a story of, you just wanted a kitchen makeover, it's fine and it will still work because there's a lot of, kitchen makeover shows. But when you have a story, that's when you really find, you hit the nail on the head, because the audience, the viewers feel satisfied. But not just that, you as the talent or the builder or the designer or the host feel extremely satisfied, because you just really, you really nailed it on the head and you hit it out of the park. You went on this journey with this family and you left with a wholeness and a completeness for the family, for the house, and for the show.
Well, that is a powerful message indeed. And all of a sudden, these tangible things take on a different meaning altogether. Let's transition to talk about, what does eco-friendly lifestyle mean for you?
Well, again, as I alluded to earlier, eco-friendly, for me, it started with your body and health. And again, we didn't grow up like my friends did, meaning we didn't have sugar cereals. We didn't have sugar at all. We were just very much, we were very much, vitamins, protein, and eating healthy. And my mom and dad were very strict about that. And so later in life, now I'm happy that we did that, right? But in the beginning, it was different. It wasn't like that. And so growing up, when I realized around 12 that I really started to enjoy carpentry and building, and then the more probably in my teens, I realized, okay, well, we're building something, creating something. How do you create something without taking from something? And that's where the eco sort of question mark started coming in. And again, I'm still learning, obviously, like everybody is today, but those questions started to pop up, like, well, how do we build this? Okay, so we have to cut down all these trees to build this. Well, that's kind of cool, but it's not cool for the trees, So it's like you start asking yourself those questions, like, how can we build something that's beautiful without continually, harvesting, or harvesting is the wrong word, without continually, taking away the beautiful nature that we have in this world. And that just led me to ask more questions, try different approaches, and seeing what we could do. We shot a show called Red Hot and Green, where it was basically the same show as Carter Ken. And that show was the only difference was that all the products we used were eco-friendly. and sustainable. And so, those are really fun shows. And I try to intertwine that completely with any show I do today, whether it's in front of camera or even behind camera. So even, when meals come, how can we be smarter about that? So that way, we're just not polluting the earth. And I mean, now it's probably, it's in my world, the eco sustainability is much bigger than I ever thought it would be, but it's definitely part of the fabric of myself and my wife too.
One of the things that I'm very cognizant of is that when it comes to big topics like, let's say, sustainability, climate change, and other, social kind of activist-oriented topics, is that it's not sufficient to just have policies, regulation. For change to take place on a global societal level, it really needs to be on a cultural level, and culture is really centered around what we've been talking about, which is storytelling.
Yeah.
And the shows that you have are social cultural cues that tells the audience this is the new norm. This is how we need to think about, interior design. How we think about sourcing and putting the right types of properly sustainable products into our homes. So I think you're definitely playing a role in that dimension. So I just want to recognize and thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. How can people learn more about your work, and do you also feature some of the pieces that you've created just for yourself? Do you put that on any type of exhibition?
I mean, every once in a while, on my social media, I'm not the best or savviest on social media, but, I try to as much as I can. Like even around our house, we have so many, I feel like, because it's more raw, the stuff that's on my social media opposed to a show that I'm on. Which is just Carter Oosterhouse on Facebook and Instagram. But people can, sort of find out, like, for us, like some of the things that we do around our house they're always, there always like maybe is a eco-friendly slant to it. Like if we're in Michigan or if we're in California, we always have a garden. It's like we always compost, stuff like that. And when you say featuring, or I like to sort of help people along the way. And maybe people think, oh, I couldn't do that, and I said, well, here's a way you could do this. Here's a way you could, lessen the amount of trash and waste that you have in your house. Try this compost and it will work great for your garden. Energy consumption is a big one, around our homes. And, we recently installed this one unit called Wiser Energy, and it tells you how much energy your house is consuming and what the appliances are, and that are consuming. And, in having something like that unit, and I can just look on my phone and say, okay, well, I used this much energy last week. Oh, I didn't really know what a kilowatt hour was, and, or how much, wattage I'm using in my home. And that's where we see as a human being is in the world, how, going back to sort of some of the questions earlier, how can we be smarter in just like building and eco-friendly? I mean, our energy consumption in our home is some of the biggest waste that we have in the world, and how we can cut down on greenhouse gases and lessen our use on fossil fuels. 2019, we had the largest energy consumption in the world that we've ever seen, and especially here in the US. And, when you see stuff like that, you're like, okay, well, there's just more people, showing up, and we have to figure out how to, not, again, like I said, just learning as a little kid in my teens, how do we not take away from this beautiful planet that we live on? And it's, our homes are getting smarter, and that's a very positive thing for all of us.
Terrific. So with that, I've been joined by Carter Oosterhouse, who is a host of TLC Trading Spaces and co-host of ABC's Christmas Life Fight and other shows. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.